Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents What's Good? A Memoir in 14 Ingredients by Peter Hoffman. Narrated by Peter Hoffman. To Susan, my wise partner and devoted champion. To Olivia and Theo, who learned alongside me much of what's described here and carry it forward as avid cooks and global citizens. A Foreword by Adam Gopnik. Some friendships start, like the universe itself, in high heat and gradually cool down. Others are more like the movement of the tectonic plates, proceeding in long, slow passage through the years until they bump into one another for good and merge to form a continent. My friendship with the author of this book is of the second kind. We began as client and chef, became collaborators and colleagues, and have ended, I think, as the best of friends. So much so that I take partial guilty responsibility for the inspired title he has given this book. As one of many in the annoying chorus of greedy people who, visiting the New York City Green Market at Union Square with him, or merely bumping into him there, demand urgently, "Peter, what's good?" As we ask, we're confident that whether talking ramps or beans or shrimp or pea pods, spring strawberries or summer peaches or winter potatoes, Peter Hoffman knows what's good and will quietly point you to the one right stand to get it, or even actually accompany you there, where his friendship with the farmer selling the good goods makes for a 10-minute catch-up before the normal business of buying and selling commences. Peter's intimate relation to the green market and its farmers is, ironically, one of the purest forms of urbanism I know. It is the place where weak ties and the bumping into relationships that broaden the spectrum of intimacy in cities still lives, even at the height of a pandemic. But this book, in addition to being as good a market guide as one could hope to find, with wisdom applicable to farmers' markets far outside New York, is something more. The story of an artist who is also an artisan. I keenly recall seeing Peter for the first time in the early 1990s in his magical Soho restaurant Savoy. What made Savoy unique among the first-rate restaurants of New York was its presciently handmade quality and its insistence on practicing the craft of cooking within the happy, normal range of experience. It was not a place to go to for 10 courses and a long lecture with each one. It was just where you went, planned or sometimes on impulse, for a perfect dinner. Perfect is a scary word to use, but Savoy's perfection was achieved in part by imperfection, by the place not trying too hard. Perfectly lit by a copper mesh light above, perfectly served by an attentive but not servile staff, with his wise wife, Susan Rosenfeld, often in attendance, and early on working there as still the best pie maker of my experience. My wife and I watched as the host and owner and chef moved among the tables, a guy my age whose care and attention were divided among the entire house. But I sensed, too, what I did not yet know, that the appealing young man was also an artist in the grip of a peculiar passion that, like all artists' passions, proposed previously impossible reconciliations. To make a new kind of eclectic, Mediterranean-inspired, yet wholly American cooking. To scrub away the last encumbering barnacles of the old slavishness to French cooking without neglecting the glory of France. I knew from our first tableside conversations that he, like me, was an admirer of the arch-Francophile writer Richard Olney. And above all, to make a place for a weekday dinner that was also a place where minds could meet and make values, to cook from an American palate without being tiresomely local. I was engaged at the same time in my own writing about food and the philosophy of eating, in what I imagined to be a similar obsession, wanting to bring the brio and tone of the New Yorker writers on appetite I loved, A.J. Liebling above all, safely into the end of the century. We were sharing a new time, when we drank less, cared for our children more, cooked home as much as we ate out, and generally, with significant exceptions, ate less for spectacle and show and more for company and conversation. I left for 5 years in Paris with that ambition in mind and had our farewell meal there. I still have pictures taken that night. Coming home in 2000, Peter and I discovered, in the way of generations, that our paths had coincided even more. We came home from Paris with a baby girl named Olivia, a name we thought uniquely original and Shakespearean, and found Peter and Susan with a baby girl named Olivia. Everyone had a baby girl named Olivia in the late 90s. Peter and I grew closer as I entered ever more deeply into the world of food, and we began to collaborate on talking dinners, some of them unforgettable, not least celebrations of the great French trilogy of bouillabaisse, cassoulet, and choucroute. They remain highlights of my own life as a speaker, seminars in gastronomic history that were underlit by actual gastronomy, talking about food while eating it. Yet one need never have eaten at Savoy, or even seen it in passing, to relish this narrative. What Peter offers the world in this memoir is really the history of the passion that was incarnated in that restaurant. Even if that restaurant, like too many good New York things, became the victim of real estate madness and neighborhoods altered, the passion still lives, and even rages. In this beautiful, bittersweet confessional, yet still appetite-fueled reminiscence he has written about many objects, the memoir of the rise and fall of a neighborhood and a restaurant, a testament to a particular vision of food, and a useful guide to what is good in any green market, and how we might go about discovering that for ourselves. His real subject is the life of a chef or cook as an artist. For cooks, he reminds us, are as much artists as any other kind, yet work with material and circumstances more resistant than any other kind of artist knows. Here is the whole history of an artist as committed as any composer or novelist to his own form of lyrical expression, with all the familiar steps. First, the inspiration from a remote hero, Paul Bocuse in this case, and then the slow, awkward formation by mentors, kind and cruel. Next, the joyful discovery of yourself as part of a generation of like-minded makers. Finally, the opening of a restaurant, the cook's equivalent of publishing that first novel, and then the inevitable struggle with idiot reviewers who give you 3 stars out of annoyance at someone else having given you 4, and all the while raising a disputatious family. I tried to dramatize the complexity of this life in a musical I wrote with the composer David Shire, Our Table, about exactly a chef, his front-of-the-house wife, and their 2 children, in which the moral is that on every menu there are prices on the right side and choices on the left, and that restaurant people make their lives between them. In the end, we all do. The difference, of course, is that where writers and painters or even musicians depend on a network and have to live ultimately in the real world of supply and demand, chefs are on the cutting edge of commerce every night, even as they dream of the outer edge of innovation every morning. Opening a restaurant is like publishing that first novel, with the difference of having to publish it again the next night. Writers struggle with their own sentences no more or less than cooks struggle with their specials. But writers don't have to pay a staff of comma cleaners or depend for the success of our last paragraphs on the mood of an inebriated last paragraph chef, as chefs must do on pastry chefs. Last paragraph chefs who would be, so to speak, hired on a flyer from another writer who forgot to mention she's no good after 10 p.m. and a second bottle of Sauterne. All of that artistry and all of the resistance it meets is recorded here. The story of an artist with a chain of keys at his waist and an intimate relationship with a refrigerator repairman essential to his vision. That's what gives this book its comic grace and its ultimate meaning. What's really good? You will learn more about the outer life of a restaurant and the inner life of a chef from this book than just from any other I know. The moral one takes away from it is somehow both simple and precariously complicated. That what's true about the history of ingredients, he tells us, is true about the life of a cook who truly cares. What's good is all that's hybrid, historically complex, constantly in dialogue between honest terroir and exotic temptation, sizing up the place you come from and the pleasure you serve. A single walk with Peter Hoffman across the Union Square Green Market supplies enough ethical tests. This one or that one? Too soon or too late? Sustainable or bad for the soil? To harden anyone's moral fiber. This book makes those walks with Peter Hoffman available to anyone who opens it and gives permanence to his passion. Prologue. On the Corner. I peer across the intersection of Prince and Crosby Streets at the corner building in Soho, where I ran a restaurant for 26 years. I feel pride, a touch of sadness, and relief. Several months earlier, I had sold off the contents to a dizzying stream of devoted customers, tourist shoppers, and bottom feeders. One last time, I removed from my pants pocket the custodian-sized ring of keys to every door, closet, back entry, and cash drawer in the place, the ones always on me, inexorably abrading my pocket lining and my spirit. I set them down. The lease had been assigned, I'd gotten paid, and gotten out. The 2 floors I occupied during most of my tenancy are now wrapped in a large plywood construction shed, wheat-pasted with posters boldly announcing the impending arrival of a fast casual food concept, a modernized cafeteria that keeps office workers calorie-fueled and close to their desks. Conceptually, it's not wholly different from the restaurant that came before me, the Rodriguez, a rice and beans luncheonette that served food dished out of a steam table or quickly griddled, but for a different set of daytime workers. Back then, sweatshop and factory employees inhabited this dwindling manufacturing district by day, all but deserting it on weekends. Standing on the corner and reflecting on all this history, I'm struck by the realization that my restaurant, Savoy, a beloved place where people came to break bread with old friends, celebrate marriages and birthdays, clinch business deals, and mark inevitable life losses while enjoying the pleasures of the table, occupied a unique moment in time. Savoy was bookended by 2 food businesses offering streamlined cafeteria-style food service, neither one a dining experience. This moment marks the end of an era for me, but presages what had been happening to many restaurants in the middle. those neither fast casual or fast food, nor high-end luxury houses. Operating in New York City had become problematic, maybe untenable. When I first discovered this corner in 1989, gazing from the same spot I'm now on, I saw a neglected shop, its brick filthy with graffiti and bent scissor gates pulled forebodingly over the windows. It sat on the backside of Broadway, a grand allée of high buildings that were fast becoming home to design and creative professionals. Just across Broadway lay the heart of Soho, epicenter of the modern art world. The Rodriguez was closed on Saturdays, when the curious art crowd crawled the neighborhood to view the latest works of an entire generation of contemporary artists. It probably wouldn't have appealed to most of them anyway. I saw a sad spot with good bones and huge potential, in need of love, attention, and a vision. Together with Susan, my wife and partner, we brought all that to the corner in a huge infusion of energy that created a hive of community. Our modest place, originally 40 seats with no bar, hummed with cooks excited to explore the worlds of flavor, to uncover the stories of how and where our ingredients were sourced, and to deepen their culinary skills. Front-of-house folks passed along that excitement and those stories to diners, while also introducing them to beverages that prompted awe at the extent people go to produce something delicious. As we figured out how to make it all work in this spot and defined our cuisine, we also learned who our diners were and what their interests were. To say that we built a clientele of regulars misses the point and reduces many rich and varied relationships down to narrow transactional exchanges. The people who ate our food, paid our bills, and partook in our culinary journey became integrated into the very fabric of the place. They were part of the vibe. A room devoid of customers is but a ghost of a restaurant. It's obvious that a place lacking customers can't remain open, but our customers, in supporting and funding our ongoing work in progress, solidified a food community. As the restaurant dug deeper into direct sourcing, the community extended far beyond the walls of the little federal-style building at the edge of Soho, beyond the borders of the city, out onto the land into the farming communities of our region, and beyond. Orchestrating this community and making its story apparent to all who entered our shop was my job and my passion for over 25 years. It fed me in all the ways I dreamed that running my own restaurant might, and fed my family and the families of many people who worked here during that period as well. Running a restaurant is performance art, a nightly show that requires myriad parts to align in order to execute a service that sings for everyone involved. When the place was humming, the cooks in tune with each other, turning out beautiful food smoothly and seemingly effortlessly, and the servers were helping diners navigate the menu and wine list while facilitating a good time in the room, I absorbed that energy and heart and mirrored it back to everyone in the house. Those nights more than made up for all the uphill pushing I had expended to keep breathing life into the place over many years. Cooks could feel the optimism emanating from me as I walked into the kitchen to share a story from the dining room, and felt pride. The window of opportunity for this fine dining establishment opened up as manufacturers deserted Soho and were replaced by the pioneers, artists, gallery dealers, and idiosyncratic shop owners, all of whom supported our creative endeavor. The window closed when the neighborhood, a product of its own success, became so heavy with retail shoppers that it attracted national and international firms willing to pay astronomical sums for brand exposure. And we didn't fit the brand. This was never clearer to me than in our final sale days, when an endless stream of shoppers flowed through looking for something, anything to buy, their thirst for acquisitions all too apparent. The moment played to our advantage, since we were depleting our entire inventory and cashing out. But it was also melancholy. In all this stunning traffic, few had any knowledge of or interest in what had transpired here over the last 26 years. I shared something in common with the Rodriguez. Over time, we both became incapable of sustaining our rents. I had participated in the gentrification of the neighborhood and gentrified myself right out of a job. Between the bookends of those cafeteria-style food operations is our Savoy story. But it is also the larger story of our changing relationship to food as a nation. Along with many compatriots around the country, we changed the culinary landscape in ways we never could have imagined. At Savoy's start, we were in search of something simple: good ingredients to cook with and a room in which to serve them unpretentiously to people who shared our values. It was a modest undertaking, but its underpinnings were profound, conceptual, aesthetic, and political. We didn't realize at the time that our endeavor would be part of a drive for a broader social and ethical inquiry, instigating a national conversation about food and social priorities and the kind of world we want to live in, a conversation that continues to this day. What's Good is the story of what happened between those bookends and a deep dive to answer the question I ask all the time, whether shopping at the Union Square Green Market or thinking about life choices. Chapters alternate between one's pulling back the curtain on the mechanics and business of starting and operating a restaurant, and others that revel in the stellar ingredients available in the market. The ingredient chapters are profiles in taste, inquiries into how the plants and animals we cherish eating can deepen our appreciation for the marvel of creation. The thrills of building community and offering friends and strangers a place to restore themselves, hence the term restaurant, the struggle to balance family and work, my discouragement as the landscape changed. It's all here. The two timelines are interwoven. A year of the growing season, from the moment sap begins running in the maple trees, a spring awakening we cannot see, up to the hard frost in November, when most plants have either been harvested or died back, alongside the 4+ decades of my professional development as composer and conductor of that human orchestra of appetite. Leeks and potatoes. I like to start my day with a tour of the universe. Living as I do in an urban environment of stone and glass, I need a portal into the green, growing world, into the benign and the miraculous. I get that by riding my bike to Union Square Green Market and doing a shop at the farmer's market. It used to be my first stop after dropping my kids off at school, 3 days a week at 8:30 a.m. before heading to the restaurant. Now that they are grown and I'm restaurant-free, my timing is less prescribed, but I know that if I want what's good, the earlier I arrive, the better. What is laid out on the farm stand tables reflects what's happening outside the city, in the soil, on the land, a result of the season maker, the planet's tilted rotation. My visits let me experience the slow revelation of spring, new crops unfurling each week. It's kind of time-lapse photography, only I get to eat the subject. The summer is an inundation, too many ingredients to choose from, each ripe, fecund, and rich. My fall market runs can jolt me. I may think I'm about to make one more great tomato basil salad when an unexpected cold snap moves in and shocks all the basil brown. Done. Over. Buy rosemary instead. Think about a quick-cooked tomato bean soup to take the edge off the chilly evening air. Once I've completed the market run, I have location and trajectory. I know what the weather really is and a notion of what to cook for dinner. I like to do the buying. You might even say I need to do the buying. Without it, I feel untethered, unstuck in time. I pedal home, ready to take on the day. It's January. How did that happen? Summer's abundance quickly slipped into autumn's parade of send-off dishes, the last corn, beans, and peppers. Plummeting temperatures and low horizon sunlight brought ingredient diversity to a nadir. A few weeks back, Christmas markets were celebratory, bright with princess pine roping sold by the yard and fir wreaths trimmed with plaid scarlet ribbon. Specialty items that farmers held in reserve to prompt holiday spending have all been offered up. A last pass on dried serrana beans, the final cuttings of the chicories, braided garlic to adorn a wall, and the reserve bottling of the best of the season maple syrup. Once this final transfer from farm cellars to apartment cupboards is complete, many growers pack up for the season. Those who remain have less to offer. There's a dreary predictability to what's available. If a media consultant were to analyze the farmers market messaging, they would be all over their client for projecting the cardinal sin of mixed signals. At the height of the growing season, farmers markets are selling the allure of food in the moment. Today's superb ingredients will never be more delicious than they are right now. Nowhere else can better be bought. Air freight and a global economy be damned. These ingredients are highly perishable and not designed to survive the pummeling and extended shelf life required by mainstream food handlers distributing on a national scale. Chefs and home cooks alike cherish this market moment and scramble in the early morning to procure wild Mexican cherry tomatoes, TriStar strawberries, and butter lettuces, rushing them back to their kitchens before the day heats up. The beauty of the shortest possible supply chain between the farm and the kitchen is apparent. Everything in the market seems to shout, "Eat this glory now." But come the hard frost, it's transformative on the landscape, to availability, and for the seasonal cook. The market messaging flips, now suddenly selling shelf life and longevity, promoting the hardy plants that hold energy stores for later use. As a cook, it's a hard transition to go from merely pointing ethereal raspberries or luscious tomatoes in the direction of a plate to create a great dish, to then literally bottom out, becoming reliant on root crops that need effort, heat, and cooking time to coax out their flavors and release their nutrients. In it for the long haul, or at least until next spring, these plants assist us humans in getting to the other side of winter. I get that it's a challenge to find excitement in the January market. During this period of cold and damp, low-light days, it can be daunting to go out and troll for inspiration and come back with potatoes. When I suffer from post-December party depression, the pull to hibernate is strong. By the time I finally spill out on the street, the sun is often beginning to sink and I wonder if it's worth bundling up and heading.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?